Tonight on Y News. Malacañang says President Rodrigo Duterte is balancing his acts on the Recto Bank incident to avoid its escalation into a full-blown crisis. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. calls on the members of the United Nations Assembly to enforce their duty to render assistance to persons in distress at sea. The Securities and Exchange Commission files a criminal complaint against Kappa Community Ministry over its alleged fraudulent investment scheme. Taguig City Representative-elect Peter Cayetano claims acts of vote buying by aspirants to the speakership post are afoot in the House of Representatives. And President Rodrigo Duterte to attend the 34th ASEAN Summit to be held in Thailand this week. Good evening. Malacañang says President Rodrigo Duterte doesn't want the Recto Bank incident to become an international crisis. Meanwhile, the palace doubts the account of the Filipino fishing vessel's captain on the incident. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Malacañang defends President Rodrigo Duterte against criticisms on his statement describing the ramming of a Filipino vessel by a Chinese vessel near the Recto Bank a maritime incident or accident. The president broke his silence over the issue and made his first take on it yesterday in a speech during the 121st founding anniversary of the Philippine Navy.
Pero yung nangyari dyan sa banggaan, that is a maritime incident. Huwag kayong maniwala dyan sa mga politiko na bobo. No? Gusto papuntayin yung Navy. You do not send gray ships there. Banggaan lang ng barko yan. Do not make it worse because that's a fertile ground for alam ninyong mga sundalo, miscommunication yan, patay na. And we are not yet as ready. And we can never be ready in a nuclear war. Stay out of trouble. Just build on our own. Huwag muna tayong makialam. Do not allow a little maritime accident or intentional go to pahinga muna kayo.
Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo explains the chief executive is just cautious and he does not want the issue to become an international crisis.
He doesn't want this blown into an international crisis given the fact na, alam mo, matagal din na bago yung relasyon from the time yung previous administration na masama ang relasyon.
Meanwhile, based on the latest information gathered by the government, particularly from a statement made by the cook of the sunken Filipino vessel FB Gemver 1, Malacañang doubts what the captain of the Filipino fishing boat said that the ramming was intentional. The cook has said that it seemed like the Chinese did not see their vessel, as well as the presence of many smaller boats aside from the Filipino mother vessel.
Kaya medyo na nagkaroon ng doubt tuloy. Of course, sinasabi ng kapatid, sinadya. Sinasabi naman ng cook, mukhang hindi sila nakita. So, with more reason na kailangan mo talagang imbestigahan.
Secretary Panelo also mentioned the idea of a possible joint investigation by the Philippines and China on the incident. The palace also revealed the chief executive is not inclined to approve the suggestion of the cabinet cluster to invite Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Zhao Jianhua, in Malacañang to explain their side on the Recto Bank incident. This is especially because the issue is still being investigated.
We feel, or the president, I think, is not inclined to do that because ang feeling niya talagang unang-una ginagawa na nila. May statement na si ambassador about seriously and cautiously studying the facts.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacañang.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. has reported to the United Nations the recent collision between Filipino and Chinese fishing boats near Recto Bank. Meanwhile, the captain of the Filipino fishing boat allegedly rammed by Chinese vessel in Recto Bank in the West Philippine Sea continues to insist the incident was not an accident. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
After hearing what President Rodrigo Duterte said publicly yesterday about the Recto Bank incident, Junel Insigne, the captain of the Filipino fishing boat, could not help but insist that what happened on June 9 was no accident. Insigne argues their boat FB Jumper 1 was intentionally hit by the Chinese crew and that it was impossible they were not visible at sea that night because their boat was lit.
Bakit di pa nila aminin na sila ang bumangga sa amin? Talaga sinadya nila. Bakit yung pagbaga sa amin, bakit hindi nila kami tinulungan? Talagang sinadya nila.
The owner of FB Jumper 1, Maria Fe de la Torre, maintains she will believe her crew more than others who were not at the scene of the incident. Insigne also continues to appeal to President Duterte for livelihood assistance and for the repair of the fishing boat. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. called on United Nations members to enforce their duty under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, to render assistance to persons in distress at sea. Speaking at the commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the entry into force of UNCLOS at the United Nations headquarters in New York on Monday, Secretary Locsin stressed that the duty to render assistance is found in UNCLOS and in the International Maritime Organization's International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, as amended, and the IMO Convention on Maritime Search and Rescue. Locsin said the rescue of persons in distress is a universally recognized obligation of people and governments, as he described the abandoning of people in distress as a felony. The incident involving Filipino fishing boat Jumper 1 and a Chinese fishing vessel occurred at an area within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Some senators expressed their dismay over President Rodrigo Duterte's statement on the sea vessel ramming incident in Recto Bank. Despite this, geopolitics experts agree the incident must not be raised as an international issue. Nel Maribohok will tell us why.
Senator Panfilo Lacson is dismayed over President Rodrigo Duterte's take on the ramming incident near the Recto Bank that involved a Filipino vessel whose 22 Filipino crew were abandoned at sea with a submerged boat. For President Duterte, it was a little maritime accident and that we should wait for the result of the investigation of the Philippine and Chinese governments. According to the senator, it's heartbreaking to hear what the president said. He is disappointed because of the president's self-limiting course of action, saying our effective weapon is found in the Mutual Defense Treaty. He adds that no less than U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has said that the United States and Philippines have an obligation under the said treaty to respond if a vessel of either party is attacked in the West Philippine Sea. The senator insists he is not asking for World War III but for the presence of a U.S. Pacific Fleet in the region. Meanwhile, Senator Franklin Drilon says whether the ramming was intentional or accidental, the issue is the Chinese boat captain abandoned the Philippine fishermen in distress. He says the abandonment is clearly a violation of China's obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. The senator adds the claim of the Chinese embassy that the Chinese boat left because of fear of being besieged by Philippine boats is baloney and a malicious lie. Despite such criticisms, some experts say the move of the Foreign Affairs Department and the President of being cautious on the issue is the right track. According to Ateneo de Manila University professor and geopolitics analyst Lucio Pitlo III, the countries involved in the incident should first settle the issue.
Should be solved first, by both sides. Otherwise, this will be a slippery slope. The next time an incident happen again, we would call on international community again to support. But we are not actually developing the maturity of our relations.
Former Philippine ambassador and maritime law expert Alberto Encomienda, meanwhile, warns on invoking the Mutual Defense Treaty in this issue in Recto Bank.
Very, shall we say, ominous because of the nature of the Mutual Defense Treaty. The Mutual Defense Treaty is about armed attack against the Philippines or against the United States. the Recto Bank incident is nothing of an aggression or armed attack.
Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte did not immediately make a statement on the boat ramming incident at Reed Bank. The government wants to know the whole truth first before taking action following the ramming incident between a Chinese fishing vessel and a Filipino fishing boat in Reed Bank. Let us take a look at the events that surround the controversial maritime incident. April Senedoza tells us why.
It was Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana who revealed that a Chinese vessel hit and sank a Filipino fishing boat anchored in Recto Bank, located in the disputed West Philippine Sea. The defense chief denounced the actions of the Chinese fishing vessel for abandoning the 22 Filipino fishermen after the incident. He said it was the Vietnamese fishermen who rescued the Filipinos distressed at sea. Following Lorenzana's statement, President Rodrigo Duterte called for a special cabinet meeting to discuss the sinking of the Filipino boat. However, Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea confirmed that the president had canceled the supposed meeting on June 17. June Insigne, the captain of the sunken Filipino boat, was also supposed to arrive in Manila to narrate the collision between the Chinese and Filipino boats. He said the president wanted to talk to him regarding the incident. The captain and his crew felt disappointed with Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusa's remarks, saying the wreckage of the fishing boat could have been more severe if the ramming was intentional. In a press briefing yesterday, presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo denied the president was supposed to meet the affected fishermen. On the other hand, the Chinese embassy in Manila admitted that a Chinese vessel was involved in the incident. In a statement, the Chinese embassy on June 14 reported the Chinese captain tried to rescue the Filipino fishermen but was afraid of being besieged by other Filipino boats. However, in its new statement on June 17, the embassy said an accidental collision took place between a Chinese fishing vessel and Filipino fishing vessels near the Recto Bank. In his Twitter account, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin Jr. confirmed that he fired off a diplomatic protest over the sinking of a Filipino fishing boat. Locsin also criticized the international community and said it is the fight of the country. In his speech yesterday, President Duterte dismissed the sinking of the country's fishing boat as a maritime incident. The government wants to know the whole truth first before taking any actions, as the Filipino and Chinese fishermen have narrations to tell. April Senedoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
A 2018 intelligence report includes China's plan to expand its power and presence in territories it claims. Part of this is the use of maritime militia. Ray Pelayo tells us why in this report.
Based on the United States Defense Department annual report to Congress in 2018, Chinese leaders including President Xi Jinping started to plan on how China can become prosperous and powerful. The report also mentions that the People's Armed Forces Maritime Militia is a subset of China's National Militia, an armed reserve force of civilians available for mobilization. It is the only government-sanctioned maritime militia in the world where militia units organize around towns, villages, urban sub-districts, and enterprises, and vary widely in composition and mission. The 2018 report also details how vital the militia is in achieving China's political goal in the South China Sea. The report includes harassment incidents in 2009 to the USNS Impeccable surveillance ship of the US, the 2012 standoff in the Scarborough Reef, the standoff at the oil rig in Haiyang Shiyu 981 in 2014, and a large surge of ships in waters near the Senkakus in 2016. The Chinese fishing militia was reportedly used for surveillance and logistic support and in search and rescue operations. China used to rent individual or company fishing vessels until they made their own. The Hainan province government constructed 84 large fishing vessels with reinforced hulls in 2016. Recently, retired veterans have been recruited to man the fishing vessels. They are provided with subsidies and salaries. During the Philippine Navy anniversary yesterday, President Rodrigo Duterte hinted that an official urges to send a warship to the West Philippine Sea.
Pero yung nangyari dyan sa Banggaan, that is a maritime incident. Huwag kayong maniwala dyan sa mga politiko na bobo. No? Gusto papustayin yung Navy. You do not send gray ships there. Banggaan lang ng barko yan. Do not make it worse because that's a fertile ground.
In 2012, the Philippines sent BRP Gregorio del Pilar to the West Philippine Sea after spotting Chinese fishing vessels anchored in Panatag Shoal. The area is just 124 nautical miles near Zambales and is part of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Tensions began when a Philippine vessel apprehended Chinese fishing vessels while another Chinese surveillance ship arrived too. Ray Pilayo, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Supreme Court postponed its debates on plea for writ of kalikasan for areas in West Philippine Sea. The SC moved the oral arguments to July 2 instead of June 25. The petition, filed by Palawan fisherfolk and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, seeks to compel the government to impose measures to protect parts of the West Philippine Sea where Chinese fishermen harvest and damage marine resources. The SC already issued writ of kalikasan to protect Philippine territories such as Panatag Shoal, Ayungin Shoal, and Mischief Reef.
Welcome back to Y News. We pick up to where Alex Baltasar left off. I'm Angelo Castro III, and here are the headlines. The Securities and Exchange Commission files charges against Kappa Community Ministry over its alleged investment scam. Consumers told to brace for water service interruptions as the National Water Resources Board cuts the allocation for Metro Manila amid declining Angat Dam water level. Taguig City Representative Peter Cayetano claims acts of vote buying by aspirants to the speakership post are afoot in the House of Representatives. Good evening. The Securities and Exchange Commission files a criminal complaint against the officials of Kappa Community Ministry over an alleged investment scheme. Meanwhile, an association of Kappa members welcomes the filing of the complaint. May Bermudez will tell us why.
A violation of Republic Act 8799 or the Securities Regulation Code was filed before the Department of Justice or DOJ against Kappa founder and President Joel Apolinario and 7 others on Tuesday in relation to an alleged wide investment scam in the country. Earlier today, representatives from the SEC formally filed a complaint before the DOJ against the officials and individuals promoting the alleged Ponzi scheme. The regulatory body has found that Kappa's 30% return of members' investments, also called as blessing or love gift, is unrealistic. A 10,000 peso minimum investment is required and collected from each Kappa member. An estimated 50 billion pesos had been collected from the organization's 5 million members. Kappa's system revolves around encouraging their members to invest in the organization as a form of donation. But according to authorities, this is considered as one of the biggest investment scams in the country. Meanwhile, Kappa welcomes the complaint filed against their officials.
Yan na po yung matagal po namin ina-attend sa mga nauna namin press con, no? Kaya naman, ina-expect po namin na ipapile po ng SEC yung mga nagre-reklamo mula sa miyembro ng Kappa. Pero bukas po kami niya, ma'am. Actually, matagal na po namin sinasabi na mag-file na po yung SEC para masagot na po namin yung mga allegation na binibintang po nila sa Kappa.
The SEC has already revoked Kappa's registration and has secured its 100 million pesos worth of assets after the Court of Appeals issued a freeze order on its assets. May Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Taguig Congressman-elect Peter Cayetano confirms there is bribery in House speakership race. He also agrees to the speakership term sharing in 18th Congress. Grace Casin will tell us why.
Pero the reality is, may namimigay ng pera sa Congress, no? This is how Taguig Congressman-elect Alan Peter Cayetano describes the bribery in the House speakership race in the lower house. Other congressmen running for the position, however, have denied the issue. Cayetano reveals that the bribe has become bigger but refused to name who is behind it.
Actually, now, ang offers are more than money. May kumausap sa akin na nag-o-offer ng 200 million per congressman na project sa party list.
Cayetano adds that before he ran for a position in the House of Representatives, he and President Rodrigo Duterte had talked about the speakership.
Hindi naman ako magre-resign sa DFA na walang plano, na wala kaming pag-usapan.
Cayetano also confirms that he agreed to the term sharing in the 18th Congress during a talk with President in Japan, but Congressman Lord Alan J. Velasco disagreed.
Nasabi ko sa ating Pangulo na payag na ako kahit na I was expecting 3 years, no, na hati kami ni Alan Velasco. Ang problema, ayaw pa niya pumayag doon.
They also clarifies that he and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio are in good terms. This despite the issue that he allegedly said that Duterte Carpio administration coalition might end if she endorsed Velasco.
So there's been some communication, pero pabayaan mo muna na ma-sort out namin. And if she feels that way, I'm hurt and sorry that she feels that way, but hindi ganun talaga.
Cayetano hosted a Duterte administration's economic and legislative agenda meeting in Clark, Pampanga on Monday. He also invited several congressmen and cabinet secretaries to discuss the economic and legislative agenda in the last 3 years of the Duterte administration. Grace Casten, UNTV News and Rescue, Clark, Pampanga.
Taguig City Representative-elect Alan Peter Cayetano plans to push for the passage of charter change in 18th Congress. He plans to pursue a two-track approach in pushing for the proposal for a shift to a federal form of government. These are the Bill in Federalism and the Bill for an updated local government code. Cayetano believes that having two options is the best way to meet what the public wants.
So we will follow two tracks, di ba? Meaning kung ang kalooban ng ating kababayan at this point in time is more autonomy and a stronger local government code, stronger local governments, then baka yun ang pumasa.
Maynilad and Manila Water customers are advised to brace for longer hours of water service interruptions. Joan Nano tells us why.
Around 11 million customers of Maynilad and Manila Water will be affected by the low pressure or rotational water service interruptions starting tomorrow. This is the National Water Resources Board or NWRB cuts anew the water allocation in Metro Manila. As of 6 a.m. today, the water level in Angat Dam dropped to 161.78 meters, which is less than 2 meters before it reaches its critical level. From 48 cubic meters per second, the NWRB has reduced the water allocation to 40 CMS given to the Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System or MWSS.
Ito po yung gusto nating i-manage na that although limited, no, yung allocation na binibigay po natin, this is still part of the contingency plan, no, to manage the limited water supply sa Angat po.
As a result, water concessionaires Maynilad and Manila Water has advised their customers to brace for longer hours of water service interruptions.
Of the 70% po, 20% po dito yung severely affected, meaning posibleng hanggang 8 hours lamang sila may tubig sa maghapon. At yung remaining 50% po is between 9 hours to 16 hours lamang yung supply window niya.
We are looking at the window of 4-hour to 17-hour water service interruption per day.
The MWSS has ordered the water concessionaires to come up with a complete list of areas and schedule affected by the water service interruptions. The agency also warns both Maynilad and Manila Water will be penalized if they fail to implement the given schedules to their customers.
Kung ano yung ipinramis nila na delivery, dapat makadeliver sila on time. Hindi pwede yung itong sinabi nila pagkatapos mawawala ang tubig on that time.
Customers are advised to always check Maynilad's and Manila Water's social media accounts for a complete list of areas affected by the water service interruptions. The water concessionaires have emphasized that the customer should store water enough for their daily consumption. The MWSS also appeals to the public to refrain from unnecessary usage of water, like excessive car washing, watering plants, and frequent washing of clothes to save water. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Food and Drugs Administration confiscates imported meat products worth more than 7 million pesos. Meanwhile, the FDA reminds Filipinos not to bring home meat products from countries affected by African swine fever. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The Food and Drugs Administration has been inspecting each grocery store and supermarket to check whether imported meat products from African swine fever-hit countries are still sold in the country. The FDA confiscates prohibited meat products so that the public cannot consume or mix with them the food of their livestock. More than 7 million pesos worth of imported meat products, equivalent to more than 16,000 canned goods, have so far been seized.
Actually, mahigit 50 na establishments no, ng mga groceries at saka mga distributors ang nahulihan natin no, na meron itong mga banned products natin na ito at sinil natin to.
The FDA once again reminds Filipinos returning to the Philippines not to bring into the country pork and pork products from African swine fever-affected countries, as authorities will confiscate them in airports right away.
Anything from yung unprocessed na frozen meat, halimbawa, bawal yon. Pero pati yung mga produkto na na-process na, no? Halimbawa yung mga delata o kaya mga kakanin, mga pagkain na containing meat products, lalo na kung pork. Kasi talagang hindi natin pinapayagang makapasok ito.
The FDA calls on the public to report establishments, distributors, and groceries who continue to sell meat products from ASF-affected countries like Belgium, Bulgaria, China, Czech Republic, Hungary, Latvia, Moldova, Poland, Romania, Russia, South Africa, Ukraine, Zambia, Mongolia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Hong Kong, and North Korea. The agency explains their strict order is to maintain an African swine fever-free Philippines.
Kasi as of now, wala pa talaga na-develop din na gamot at saka na bakuna kontra sa sakit ng mga baboy na ito. Kaya talagang indefinite yung ating ban at saka indefinite yung ating seizure and recall order.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The prices of Highland vegetables from Benguet and the Mountain Province dropped. Nina Armilio will tell us why.
An overwhelming supply of various Highland vegetables is available at the La Trinidad Vegetable Trading Post. This comes after the continuous rainfall recently. The public may also enjoy the vegetables at low prices. These Highland vegetables include cabbage, wambak, carrots, and potatoes.
Bumaba. Panagtotorokot na lang nga maapit na itong tata. Ay, logi tanibin maba. When na over.
However, the prices of other vegetables increased, such as celery, cauliflower, and lettuce.
O yung mga lettuce, mahal talaga ngayon. Kasi madaling masira yan kapag umuulan.
Meanwhile, the prices of broccoli, green peas, and chayote have not changed. The farmers assure the supply of Highland vegetables from Benguet and the Mountain Province is sufficient. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue.
Ricky Vargas resigns today as president of the Philippine Olympic Committee, or POC. Vargas announced his resignation during a session with the POC board members in their office in Pasig City, according to POC spokesperson Ed Picson. In a statement, Vargas said the POC will be better led by other sports leaders, but added that his support for Philippine sports will continue in his private capacity. Vargas served the POC for 16 months, replacing former POC President Peping Cojuangco, who was seated for 13 years. Vargas has earlier revealed the politics in the committee. Former POC First Vice President Joey Romasanta will take over Vargas's position. Meanwhile, Congressman-elect Peter Cayetano discounts the possibility of the country's withdrawal from hosting the Southeast Asian Games after the sudden resignation of Vargas as the Philippine Olympic Committee president. The country is 5 months away from hosting the 30th Southeast Asian Games.
Well, syempre, if you have a leadership change, di ba, then of course there's going to be more discussion, but we will cope up with it. And we will not withdraw. We never say die tayo. Tsaka we intend to do very well itong SEA Games.
And to complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. President Rodrigo Duterte will attend the 34th ASEAN Summit in Bangkok, Thailand this month. The sea ramming incident near Recto Bank may be mentioned during the ASEAN leaders meeting, according to the Foreign Affairs Department. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
From June 22 to 23, President Rodrigo Duterte will participate in the 34th ASEAN Summit together with other heads of member states under Thailand's ASEAN chairmanship this year. The president's delegation includes his 7 cabinet members. Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Juniver Mahilom West says the issue on the South China Sea will be discussed. And in general, the latest issue, which is the Recto Bank incident in which a Chinese vessel rammed a Filipino fishing vessel, may be opened to push for the code of conduct in the South China Sea.
Pwede ho namang during the exchange of views on regional developments, there is an opening to raise these issues, because incidents like what happened emphasize the importance of having a code of conduct so that we could prevent these incidents from happening in the future.
The official clarifies it is still premature for her to say that the Philippines will discuss this issue deeply and in detail during the summit, since this is still being investigated by the Philippine and Chinese governments. The government still awaits China's response to the diplomatic protest the Philippines has filed after the Chinese crew allegedly abandoned the Filipino fishermen when their boat sank during the incident.
For one thing, there is this investigation that's ongoing that up to the present discloses certain facts that we did not know before. Also, we've lodged a strong protest with China, and we are awaiting China's response to this. So in the meantime that these major factors are pending, I think it would be premature of me to say that we will raise the issue at the summit.
The chief executive is also expected to meet bilaterally with other ASEAN leaders at the summit. Meanwhile, it is not yet sure if the president will have the chance to meet with the Filipino community in Bangkok due to the hectic schedule. This year is the 3rd time the president will visit Thailand. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacañang.
And for the news abroad, here's Kath Dumaraos reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. Kath, good evening.
Good evening, William. Former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has died aged 67 after collapsing in a Cairo court while on trial on espionage charges. Jovic Burmas will tell us why.
Former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has been buried hours after he collapsed in court and died on Monday. His lawyer said the former leader had been buried in eastern Cairo early on Tuesday morning with his family present. Morsi, who was 67, had been in custody since his removal from office in 2013. Human rights groups who had criticized the conditions in which he was kept have called for an impartial investigation into his death. The Muslim Brotherhood said the death was a full-fledged murder.
To begin with, we count this man as a heroic martyr, Dr. Mohamed Morsi, the first civilian president to be elected in Egypt's history. This martyr who was killed today by the Egyptian regime forces, the forces of the coup who prevented him from getting his medicine and carried out a crime against Morsi.
Activists and his family had long said Morsi was not receiving treatment for serious health problems such as high blood pressure and diabetes, and was constantly being held in solitary confinement. Morsi collapsed moments after addressing the court in Cairo over charges of espionage related to suspected contacts with the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas, which had close ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. He spoke for some 5 minutes from a soundproof glass cage, which officials said was designed to prevent him from disrupting proceedings. Morsi was pronounced dead, and an initial report showed no signs of recent injuries on the body, Egypt's public prosecutor said. Last month, his family said authorities had repeatedly denied access to him and that they knew little about the state of his health. During his time in prison, Morsi was allowed only 3 visits from relatives and was denied access to his lawyers or a doctor, according to human rights group Amnesty International. Morsi, who became Egypt's first democratically elected leader in 2012, had already been sentenced to more than 45 years in prison in 3 separate trials, including for leading an outlawed group, detention and torture of an anti-government protesters, and leaking state secrets. Jovic Vermas, UNTV News and Rescue.
President Donald Trump said on Monday that U.S. authorities would begin next week removing millions of immigrants who are in the United States illegally. There are an estimated 12 million immigrants who are in the United States illegally, mainly from Mexico and Central America. Under a deal reached earlier this month, Mexico has agreed to take Central American immigrants seeking asylum in the United States until their cases are heard in U.S. courts. The agreement, which included Mexico pledging to deploy National Guard troops to stop Central American immigrants from reaching the U.S. border, averted a Trump threat to hit Mexican imports with tariffs. Chinese President Xi Jinping will travel to North Korea on Thursday for a 2-day visit. Xi will meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to discuss the problems facing the Korean peninsula. The 2-day visit will be the first by any Chinese leader to North Korea in 14 years and Xi's first since taking power in 2012. It comes a week before the G20 summit in Japan, at which Mr. Xi is expected to meet U.S. President Donald Trump. In China, 12 people died and another 125 were injured after 2 earthquakes hit southwest China's Sichuan province on Monday night. A 6.0 magnitude earthquake hit Changning County of Sichuan's Yibin City, and another 5.1 magnitude earthquake occurred in Yibin's Gong County, according to local authorities. 10 villages and towns have been severely affected by the earthquakes. In India, more than 100 children have died in an outbreak of suspected viral encephalitis in India's Bihar state. At least 200 patients, many of whom are below the age of 10, are still being treated at 2 hospitals. State officials have said that many victims had died due to hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Such outbreaks have happened annually during summer months in the same district since 1995, typically coinciding with the lychee season. Several years ago, U.S. researchers had said the brain disease could be linked to a toxic substance found in the fruit. And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Kath Dumaraos, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand.
He doesn't want this blown into an international crisis, given the fact na, alam mo, matagal din na bago yung relasyon from the time yung previous administration na masama ang relasyon.
Bakit di ba nila aminin na sila ang bumangga sa amin? Talaga sinadya nila. Bakit yung pagbaga sa amin, bakit hindi nila kami tinulungan? Talaga sinadya nila.
Very, shall we say, ominous because of the nature of the Mutual Defense Treaty. The Mutual Defense Treaty is about armed attack against the Philippines or against the United States. The Recto Bank incident is nothing of an aggression or armed attack.
Actually now, ang offers are more than money. May kumausap sa akin na nag-o-offer ng 200 million per congressman na project sa party list.
Lalo pang paigtingin ng PNP ang ating kampanya laban sa illegal na droga, lalong-lalo na doon sa mga supplier. Of course, ang pakikipagtulungan ng ating mga local government units, kailangan pong palakasin ang lahat ng mga barangay anti-drug abuse councils, municipal anti-drug abuse councils, provincial anti-drug abuse councils, at maging yung ating pagkikipag-ugnayan sa iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan.